There are two places that contain the machine setup information. One is Info. The description screen contains the settings for the table size, the number of stations, the PDC station if that applies, clamp information, the machine driver assigned, and also the file path and extension for the machine code file. If this were a combination machine, you could also set up the over travels and no cut zones for the cutting head, along with the support pins if that applies. The sequence info screen allows you to set the sequence direction, some punching preferences, the default settings for use subroutines and macro on, and the starting corner on the sheet for auto sequence. For a combination machine, you could set some cutting preferences and the after cut conditions. Repo info has the default settings for auto repositioning, the type of reposition used during automatic repositioning, some settings to use during the auto repositioning, along with the hold down spacing, size, and whether or not the hold downs are in a fixed location. If you purchase nesting, you can set up those defaults by clicking on the Nesting Info tab. In here, you can set the location on the sheet for the parts, the direction the parts are nested in on the sheet, along with the starting corner for the nest. You can also tell the software to automatically sequence and generate the machine code for the sheets, or simply create sheets without the sequence or machine code. If remnant is checked, and some are created, the software keeps track of them in the material inventory in the nesting module. And for a combination machine, you can tell the software to cut the sheet into smaller, more manageable pieces after the parts have been sequenced by checking Split Sheet, and then entering the number of pieces to split the sheet into. And in the nesting preferences, check the ones you want to use during the nesting. These are the default settings and can be changed per nest from inside the nesting module. The Worksheet tab lets you set up the worksheet information, and for a combination machine, you'll see all these fields active, and you can right-click and then left-click on What's This for specific information on any of these settings. For a punching machine, most of these fields are inactive, so you can only select the ones that are not grayed out. To save these settings as a permanent change to the machine currently loaded, simply click on the Save button. If you wanted to save the changes to a different machine, click on OK instead. Then you would have to go to the File menu, click on Save As, change the type to be Machine, and type in a name for the machine. I'll click on Close. The other place that has information about the machine is called Turret. After selecting Turret, the screen display changes to the Turret Setup window. At the top is the name of the machine loaded along with the tool inventory. And these will be the ones you have set as the defaults in Preferences. If you don't see any names up here, that means you don't have any defaults set in Preferences. Every punching machine has a turret setup. That includes the station number, the size, and keep in mind when entering the tools into the tool inventory, the station size assigned to the tool must match the station size assigned to the turret station that tool fits in. That's how the software knows what tools can go in what stations. The station type can be set to keyed, not keyed, which would only accept tools that have no angles assigned to them in the tool inventory, auto for auto index, and manual, which would be a station you can set to a specific angle. The tool column displays the tool assigned to that station, or the word None if no tool is assigned. The angle column is the angle the tool is set to, and next is the keyed angles on the turret station itself. If the station type is not keyed or auto, you won't see any keyed angles. When you enter the angles for the turret stations, you have to picture yourself standing in front of the turret station loading the tool. Then, 0 is to the right, 90 is away from you, 180 is to the left, and 270 is towards you. As you scroll to the right, you'll see the over travel and no punch zones for the turret stations. During sequencing, the software looks at these settings and determines whether or not it can punch the pattern. No punch zones are one of the things you might have to change about the turret setup you received. We enter the no punch zone numbers from the manual. If you have one of those holders for your big stations, that let you get real close to the clamps, we wouldn't know that. So you would have to change the no punch zone here and then save the machine again. If you don't, you won't be able to punch as close as you would like. To make changes to these settings, simply click in any column for the station you want to change. It will highlight, and you'll see the station window for the station selected. And now you can make changes in here. These turret setups vary from machine to machine. If you have a trump machine that uses a tool changer, and you had 20 holders on the machine, you would have 20 stations in here. And if all the stations were rotation, the type would be auto-index for each one. And you'll notice for this trump setup, all the station sizes are set the same. So for this inventory, all the tools would have the same station size assigned. If you have clamps in the tool rack, you'll need to create a special tool, this one was named clamp, and assign it to the tool holder position that has the clamps. If you don't do something like that, the software thinks it can use that station for a tool. Some machines use a multi-tool setup for one of the bigger stations. If that's the case, you would see something like this, where station number 10 is set to a multi-tool by using a 4-digit number with 10 as the first two numbers. And of course, the size assigned to the tool in the inventory would have to match the station size assigned to the multi-tool stations. If you're using a single station machine and you need to use 8 tools for the job, you would need at least 8 stations set in here so the software can load in all the tools for the job. On the other hand, if you're picking tools from some sort of a rack that holds, let's say, 100 tools, well, then you would have to set up a turret that had at least 100 stations. As you can see, the machine setups will vary quite a bit. However, a couple of things don't change. During auto tool selection, the software will automatically add tools to the turret, and during sequencing, the software looks in here to see if the pattern you're trying to sequence is out of range X or Y or in a clamp dead zone. And you don't have to save a turret setup for each sheet. When you save the sheet, it saves the turret setup, including all the tools, for that sheet.